Welcome, everybody, to the Three Gun Show. This is a live broadcast with our buddy Eric Eckhardt. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and we're going to be talking about nerdery tonight, aren't we, Eric?
Weapons grade nerdery. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. We're going to get real nerdy on this one, so sit tight. It's going to be a good time. Eric, it's good to see you, man.
Yeah, bear with us. We'll try to make it entertaining.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me on. It means a lot. Appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, I'm excited. This has been too long coming, so I'm glad that you finally found a computer and someone taught you how to use it, and here we are.
Heather built it.
There you go. So yeah, if you're listening along here, make sure you say hi on the YouTubes to us. We'll answer questions in the chat at the end here, and Eric is going to be one of those people where you don't want to miss the opportunity to ask a question if you got it. So, Eric, man. I want to start at the start here. So not at the gestation, mom and dad and all that stuff, but I want people to get an idea of who you are off the range. So real quick background, who's Eric Eckhardt when he's not shooting on the range?
I don't know if I am anybody off the range. No, I am still currently active military for at least the next short while. I used to be involved in a lot of different sports activities outside of this, but really, the more I got into competitive shooting, the more I realized I never had a bad day on the range. So that's mostly what I do now. I wish I could give you a little more interesting answer than that. I grew up with. I honestly started shooting at age 4. The whole story that everybody likes to give, but I really did. At age 3, stealing my dad's guns, trying to drag him off to bed and whatnot. I started competing with rimfire and muzzleloaders before I can remember, and I didn't get into practical shooting until probably about 2004. I came back from my second tour and wanted a little more interesting challenge. I'd shot skeet, archery, muzzleloader, bullseye, some stuff like that growing up. So I got into IDPA, got into IPSC, and I shot my first 3-gun in 2004. Said, hey, this is what I want to do more of. There's a big gap in between some of those matches and me getting back into the sport. But it's really life is just being in the Army, helping out around the house with Heather and shooting right now. So isn't that one-dimensional?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. So you mentioned other sports. What other sports were you involved in?
I mean, growing up, I played soccer, football. I wrestled for a long time. I was into a lot of shooting sports, like I said, trap shooting, archery, some of the other things like that. I ran a little track. I swam a little as a kid. After leaving home, I got into jiu-jitsu, whatnot, for a little while. A lot of mountain biking, some endurance stuff for a little while. I did powerlifting for a while. And they're all I skydive, but they're all still fantastic sports. But like I said, every one of those had an arc where they're great. This is all I want to do every day. All right, I want to be competitive. I reached a point and I kind of fell off. Going to the range was the thing where I was like, all right, are we done mountain biking? Because I can still shoot while the sun's up. So that's why I got more involved with the concept of being a competitive shooter.
So what is it about those sports that have, or what do all those sports have in common with practical shooting? Or is it just that practical shooting is so different that's what your heart settled on?
So I actually believe that any competition, I don't care, I don't know anything about dance, but anything that anything like that's even a bit physical and has where you have competition and you have wins and losses. And I think the big thing is where you start at the ground level and you work your way up through trying to be a champion. And you see that there is benefit to a long-term grind through the skills and training properly and building a plan or working with somebody on a plan. Once you see that like this, it can be achieved, whether you're just trying to run faster or climb a mountain or something like that, where you start out, you don't run fast, whatever, you can't fly, shoot, something like that. You work with people for a while, and then all of a sudden you're good. And you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, or you can see how you'd want to progress on to try to be a champion and try to take a run at the best. They're all like that. Golf, running a sailboat, anything like that. You're building skills, and a lot of that is a grind and learning how to train and how to really how to visualize, how to how am I going to see myself winning? How or can I see myself winning? they're all the same in that regard. There's a lot of crossover. So I think any kind of competition or any kind of attempt to better yourself, if you're a painter, just trying to get to be a better painter, and all the process is similar.
Mm-hmm. So you enjoy the rise, the arc, the process of anything, right?
Absolutely, I absolutely do. I think too that the more physical sports, whether they be contact or not, anything with a lot of dynamic movement translates really well into our sport, because one of the things that I think I focus on a lot, that a lot of people that maybe look as a secondary thing, is dynamic movement and like reflexive recoil management. It's all stuff that can be trained like you would train a fighter, a guy shooting a jump shot, anything where you're imparting force against another object. There's certain ways that are more efficient to do it. So all of those, even moving a mountain bike through space is there's similar attributes, or there's similar things, force transmission that goes into it. So I think
powerlifting is one of those.
What's that?
Powerlifting is one of those. Jiu-jitsu is one
absolutely.
Of those.
And there's a lot of places where they diverge. If you're trying to go for a heavy squat, you're going to have your weight fully on your heels, trying to push the earth away from you. If you're trying to shoot dynamically, your weight better not be on your heels. But it still is power transmission, reacting to what what's happening to you, or more importantly, what you're trying to do. So I do think there is, and once you learn kind of the broad spectrum, if you do hop from sport to sport and learn about it, it all translates very well into shooting. And you're ahead of the game. If you look at a guy like Josh Froelich, obviously somebody knows how to transmit power into somebody else's face. That counts. That counts. It's not everything, but it counts an awful lot, clearly. So
right. So then what is it about practical shooting that makes you want to stick with it? It's been said many times in the show that there's no such thing as a perfect run or a perfect match. You can always achieve better. Isn't that
the best? There's no 100%. There's not. Somebody can take a fraction off your time. Somebody can see a better plan, shoot a little tighter. That's why I like about that we have time, because nobody's ever going to shoot it instantly. And until that happens, you can always get faster, right?
Right.
And that is efficiency, intelligence, accuracy. I don't mean like being smart, but just running the stage smart. But accuracy, all that goes into it. And it really, as good as the times we see from some of the shooters we have at the top now, Jordan Horner, those guys, there's going to be somebody come eventually, and it's either going to be a new technique that we haven't thought of, or a new way to engage, or just a more skilled person to train better is going to start taking fractions of those off. I don't think we've seen the limit yet, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe I can't be that guy, even though the stats dictate otherwise. But I think that as long as that's the case, as long as we're racing towards an instant run, then we always have a race.
Mm-hmm. What kind of attributes do you think that someone who comes along that will turn the game on its head and be better than Mitchell Eck, Jordan Horner, what kind of attributes would that person have to have?
Well, I don't think you can get away from athleticism anymore. I don't. I think that the next best shooters are going to be highly athletic, because I think it's been coming, and it shows for certain now. I think there's going to be new ways to train vision, new techniques on movement. There's going to be an ideal kind of body type, weight range for certain sports, and I think they are kind of different for different guns. But reality is, one of the things I think is going to be most important is how well we start training the brain to see the stage and execute it perfectly, and to be able to be that guy in the back seat that just watches the stage go down, only step in when you need to, and then let it happen again. You know what I mean? So kind of shooting from a third person and that relaxed mental plane, at the same time, 100% force transmission, accurate engagement, but a lot of things, like breathing, mental management, rehearsal, visualization, all that. The next best are going to be taking a lot of that to the next level, because in reality, the gun does most of the work. You just have to get it there and point it in the right direction. So those are the two places where I think, short of maybe some mind-blowing techniques on the reload or something to that effect, I think we are kind of seeing 95% on some technology, but movement and mental management, I think, are probably the way forward.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking like flow states, right? Like people
Yeah,
describe in the middle of an athletic performance
yeah,
that it
yeah,
seemed like time slowed down. They almost weren't even in charge. Everything just fell together.
yeah. It's exactly a term, flow state. Yeah, I mean, it's even I watch kids wrestle now, and I'm like, that 14-year-old could beat the tar out of me because they wrestle different. They're in a different plane mentally, and they move the match the way they want it to move. And I always thought I just needed to wrestle harder or get
Right.
stronger or something like that. I wouldn't stand a chance, you know. They've moved the not just the training aspect, and a lot of the techniques are still the same, but where they're at mentally, what they're trying to do, how they see the match, play out, or how they see the that event play out is a step ahead. They have better coaches, better technique. So I think that's where shooting's going, because you can only do so much to make a gun faster. I mean, we already got pistols that have less than a pound of recoil, rifles at about a pound, shotguns are, I mean, in a day you can learn how to reload second round. And after that, I mean, what can you do other than get it on target faster and make sure you don't make mistakes going through the course? So that's why I think that's the next level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so there's very different kinds of matches, and some of the more physical matches out there, like you said, athleticism, it definitely shines through. Some recent examples are going to be like Task Force Dagger and the Duskin match that require a lot of physicality to be a part of that. Do you see that physicality like in every match? Like for example, USPSA Multi-Gun Nationals is entirely base stages. It's very fast, but there's not a lot of dragging 200-pound dummies involved in it.
I mean, where could physicality hurt? I guess is my question. If I can develop burst speed and proprioception and plyometrics, if I can bring all that up, where could it possibly hurt? If I can do that, not to the exclusion of learning how to be more efficient, how to think better, how to visualize and execute better, the two are not mutually exclusive goals. So if I'm bringing both up, where could being a little faster, a little stronger hurt? I mean, just core speed. Technique counts for a ton. Like I said, the gun does most of the work. We've got like 14-year-old girls that run the shotgun better. 250-pound guys that I work with until they learn how, you know what I mean? But, there's no reason for a giant to be getting knocked around by a shotgun when you watch a 14-year-old teenage girl, which is so impressive to watch, rock that thing, So there's a lot of techniques to be had. But when the guy learns it, and he's, with his 4.740 time, it's going to be hard to keep up with him if he puts both of those together. One does not preclude the other, So.
Right. Right. Well, okay. So would you agree that the three areas of shooting are like mental game, actual manipulation of firearms, the shooting portion, and then physicality?
Yeah, and I would put mental game a step or two above the rest of them. I really, because there's how many challenging shots do we really have off the clock?
Yeah,
we have some. We do. I'm not trying to play that down at all. But a lot of them aren't, and they aren't by nature. I've always said some of the hardest stages to win are the easiest stages because everybody's going to shoot them well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go into it willing to hit afterburner and be at 99, 100% like that entire short or easy stage because somebody's going to hit it at 100%, or somebody's going to take it a step beyond that. And so to be consistently winning those is that's all mental. If all I have to do is kind of point towards it with my shotgun and shoot, well, everything else needs to be dead on, or I'm losing time that there's no way to gain back. So yeah, I think mental is first and foremost. I do believe that manipulation is above being physical, or accuracy, weapon manipulation in general is well above being physical. But like I said, how can it hurt to be faster or to have a lower heart rate when you get to that last station? I don't care if it's 8 yards away or 80. You know what I mean? How can any of that really hurt you? So,
right.
And in a lot of cases nowadays, we're seeing a lot more matches where it'll really help you. So.
Right. So I know that you've done training. I don't know. I would recreationally. Is that something you've done professionally as well?
Which kind of training?
Any kind of training, like as an instructor.
I'm in the military, so I'm kind of senior now. I'm working towards retirement. That's a lot of what I do now. Just train guys. I was for a while an instructor where we worked primarily on engagements from close to really far away without getting too much into it. And recently I've been training some of our guys on 3-gun. I really enjoy doing it. And every minute I spend on the range, I'm learning something. But no, I mean, other than what your taxpayer dollars have funded, I haven't really been paid much to go out and teach somebody else. So
right. So
for me, for pretty good for that.
Yeah, just give us your phone number out here, and we'll call you if we need you.
Yeah, I'm down with it.
So, I'll put your instructor hat on then, and think of, like, if you're looking at a week.
Can you read
it? You're looking at like a week that someone has, right? Someone has like a normal day job, 3 guns, their hobby, their passion, something they want to get good at. How much time would you recommend that they devote to those 3 areas of training, in what proportions, say in an average week?
And is this somebody with almost no background, or somebody that's already shot a few matches?
Someone that's already shot a few matches. They've got the bug. Maybe they've shot a couple majors, and they want to continue to progress in the sport. So when we're talking about, like, actual range time, accuracy, weapons manipulation, mental game, and physicality, then what proportion, and what would like a week of training look like for that?
I used to go by the equation that shot to shot is hundredths of a second, target to target is tenths of a second, movement is whole seconds. So if the guy's already kind of proficient and able to, guy or girl, sorry, if the person is already kind of proficient, first of all, safe. Are they safe? Mm-hmm. And then you get through a stage. Are they in a mental space where they can get through a stage without DQing themselves or hurt somebody else? That's it. That's 100%. If we can't get past that, then that's what we're going to work on. After that, if they already have a kind of a 60 to 70% level of marksmanship, me personally, I'm going to work on movement with them, because it's probably going to be what they don't get anywhere else. Movement, start and stop, and efficiency. During all of that is going to be managing recoil, just being athletic with the gun, driving the gun. I think that's huge and often underlooked. But yeah, during all of that, though, no matter what we were working on, what I try to focus on is, prior to the drill, give the guy X amount of time to visualize it, have them shoot it, and have them visualize it afterwards, having, now all the mystery's gone. Now visualize what it's supposed to be correctly, and then talk about it. Like, talk me through what you visualize, because it's an extremely hard skill to develop, to accurately visualize, to mentally rehearse the stage. It really is. And it's easy to go, I'm going to shoot those, and then shoot those, and I'm going to change my shotgun. There's a lot going on in there. And being able to see it and only see yourself doing it right is, that's why we have a few guys that, not the only reason why, but it's one of the reasons why we have a few guys that win a lot, because they can do that very well at a level that's hard to attain without constant practice. And I think that visualization is harder than learning marksmanship. Until you've shot a lot, you don't even know what's coming next. So the whole time that you're learning up, or the whole time you're training up, you should be learning how to see it. How's the next drill going to go? What am I going to feel? What am I going to do? Where do I want to be? There's other things to learn, like breathing and all that comes with that mental game. So, I would say marksmanship being kind of a given. You can get that a lot of places. I would work on movement with them, because I don't think you get it in a lot of places. But the entire time, no matter what we were doing, it would be the mental game. What you see and what you think, so.
Got it. So you're going to be incorporating the mental game into everything that you do, physicality-wise, shooting-wise.
Yeah. Look at like talk to an Olympic powerlifter or somebody, a champion lifter or something like that. They have to see that lift. They have to go on that lift knowing it's going up. The best lifters are going to be the people that there was no doubt in their mind. It's just on the one they did fail, they actually weren't strong enough. But there's plenty of lifters that don't get it up because they stopped. You know what I mean? So even something simple like that, or something extremely physical. I don't want to say it's simple, because it's not. But extremely physical, it's all about visualization, being in the right zone. Shooting's like that too. Shooting is that it's like 50 free throws in a very short amount of time. It should be easy. It really should be easy, but you get out of the zone, and it's not. So and also getting back into it rapidly. If you do have to hop in the front seat and steer for a second, how do I get back calm again? Things like that. So.
Yeah. The mental game in like an athletic performance is huge. And I think recreational athletes don't necessarily pay it much attention. We talk about it a lot in practical shooting, but even in things, so like I used to working at a CrossFit gym that's in the south end of Denver here. And at the beginning of like our power period or whatever, you'd have people saying like, "Oh, I don't think I can do this." It's like, you're right, you can't. You shouldn't even try. Just go home right now.
You're correct. Yeah. You're absolutely correct. And if you put some ghost plates on for them that look like 25 instead of 45s, there's a decent chance they'd have got it up.
Yeah.
There's a chance they would have got it up and surprised themselves. Not to, and I'm not trying to act smart anybody in the room, but those kinds of things happen. And it's the same thing with shooting. I tell a lot of the guys that I work with, like, shoot with fast people. Like, ego's gone. You're supposed to be the best at what you are, and you are. Nobody doubts that. But this is a very specific sport. Just like you wouldn't expect to go win a triathlon or a speed free climbing event, even though you can do both. Don't expect to win this. But you go shoot with the people that are that much better and see that it can be done. See how fast you can go target to target or spot to spot, or how fast you can manipulate the gun, or that you can do certain things with different platforms you didn't think you could. Just see it, and then some of the mystery's gone at that point. Like, I could probably do that. I just need to train up to that level, And it's kind of breaking out of that. I have some drills that I put guys through to try to break them out of their natural pace and their natural rhythm, get them a little faster. But the best thing, I think, is just shoot with better people, so you can start visualizing yourself doing that.
Joe Rogan was talking about that one time. So he's obviously someone who, if you've listened to his podcast, you know that he's really into martial arts. Yeah. And he said that going to a tournament one time when he was, I don't know, late teens, early 20s or something, like, blew his mind and expanded what he thought was possible in martial arts, because he got the opportunity to see what people do at a high level. And honestly, man, like watching, Greg and Daniel and Jerry do some stuff, at first you're like, holy crap, like, how did that just happen? But then, when you finally break it down, it proves that it's achievable for a human to do that, and it makes it attainable for the average person.
And that's not to detract from the fact that I think they're the best at what they do. And, they have definitely put the time in, and I think they're the top end. Like, at competition, as much as I like playing football, I was never going to be in the NFL. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just wasn't. And the best guy out there is not going to be like Tom Brady or somebody like that. There's going to be one or two of those at a time. However, moving towards that, or looking at that, or maybe finding a better way to do, like in this case, I said Tom Brady, but not that I'm a Patriots fan or anything, but numbers are there. You might find a better way to do that en route to it. If you look at that and say, hey, that's attainable, there might be a smarter way to get there. It might be a way that I can do it. It's different than the way he does it, but it's just a human. You know what I mean? So, and I think that those guys, the guys that you mentioned, Jerry, Greg, Daniel, all the guys that are consistently at the top, they're very good at what they do. They've got a lot going for them physically and mentally, and they put the time in. And they put the time in with a plan. And, clearly at some point they either mastered the mental game or they're born with it, which I think some people are. But just seeing that it's attainable. Go shoot with them. Go see that it's not that far away. You're talking hundreds of a second sometimes, shot to shot. It's all things you can figure out if you can put it all together,
Interesting. All right, man. I love that. So you seem to be, one of your strong suits seems to be breaking things down, right? Like, you see something and then dissecting it in your mind, or working it out and like how you're going to attack that. Is that, do you agree with that? Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, I do. I think it's from being broken a lot of times. All right, well, that didn't work. Why the hell didn't that work? I've been through some relatively challenging stuff in my military career, and not all of it was successful the first time, so I had to reassess. And even as a kid, I got my helmet knocked off me. I got pinned in 40 seconds. So I had things like that happen to me. But my father was always of the minds like, get the hell up. Like, what went wrong and how do we fix it? Or he was a phenomenal coach. Like he was, I would say, a lot better than I am at breaking things out. I'd never see it like, that's not a problem. That's just a lesson. Are you still alive? Can you still walk? Then let's go that way. That's always carried through. I never really felt like being coached by my dad. My mom's the same way too. She's tougher than anybody, almost anybody I know. She's just less vocal about it. And you need to finish. But no, he was just always that guy it was never life ending just because something happened, just because you got knocked on your face or you fell down or something like that. You didn't win the race, whatever. It's like, all right, well, next year we need to run faster. Like, what's it going to take to do that? Can you figure it out? Can you find somebody that can? Will you put the work in? And especially when I was young, never let me skip a practice, never let me go half-ass or anything like that. That I think that just became part of who I was. Shooting as well. It's like, all right, you're not shooting great today. Why not? And do you want to fix it? And that was a big question: is do you want to be better at this? And of course, I'd always say, yeah. Well, once I committed to it, well, then this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to be better. And it's carried me through, my entire career and just life in general. And yeah, so I owe both my parents a lot for that. And I don't think I came up with it. I think I learned it from people better than me. So.
Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to do that, especially as adults, and like this game is difficult for people to get into and put their ego aside and realize, like, I may be, an engineer with a master's degree, and I'm gonna go get my ass kicked on the on the range here. You know, it's hard for people to set that ego aside of like, I should have proficiency as a 35-year-old, 38-year-old, 45-year-old person, right? Is ego a problem for you, or do you?
For me personally?
For you personally, do you feel like you operate?
I want to win everything I shoot, man.
Right, but then
anything. I go sing karaoke. I want to win. I try too.
But then if you don't win karaoke, then is that an ego hit to you? Do you have like a wallowing in self-pity moment of like, I need to sing better? I need to sing better, or is it just like, I'm going to go practice?
I wouldn't want to downplay my weaknesses on that. Like I've had those moments of self-pity. I've had the moments of self-doubt about my preparation. Lots of those, but what I've tried to do is I got more into, or just competing throughout my life, is try not to let that prevent me from, building a plan and moving forward with it, or getting back on the mat, or whatever. You're getting back behind the gun. It's not always perfect. I'm far from perfect. It's something I aspire to not let it hit me and keep me from going back to it. There are times when I've decided, yeah, that sucked, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But I think it's a little different than saying I can't stand the ass whipping anymore. I can't stand the embarrassment. If it's something you enjoy. Yeah, I don't want to be preachy about it. I think it's something I try to get better at all the time, and I think everybody has room to grow in that regard. So,
yeah, I mean, seriously, like I'm not kidding when I say I see it all the time. There are people that, walk away from a club match in a huff. It's like, dude, you shouldn't be good. This is your second time out here. Just
Jerry Mickwick once said, we were down in Texas or something shooting, and I was talking about, when I got better, when I got to where I was, I was making a run at the top 10, occasionally. There was a point last year or the year before, whatever, at Nationals, where I was well in the lead, the Three Gun Nation Nationals, like well in the lead. And I went into the last stage thinking too much about where I was at. Totally, I mean, great lesson for me, but total failure on my part. And I really burned in on that stage and gave up a ton of time on it and fell back to, I don't even know where the hell I finished. But what he said was shooting with an expectation. I go up to the match thinking I should win, or I'm supposed to do this well. Like, who the hell can say that?
Right.
Who is supposed to do what? Yeah, this is especially the matches nowadays. There is no telling who's coming out of that crowd to clean up. Like, you don't know who's been training, 15 hours a week in their backyard and on their own dime, just gone in for maybe one person specifically. So going there thinking like you're either owed it or you're supposed to do it or whatever. I just thought it was very succinct. You know how he talks. Sometimes he just says things, you're like, that's the way you're supposed to say it. You know what I mean? But he said, yeah, don't shoot with an expectation. And that was, for me, huge. It was a huge coaching point, learning point for me. So it's not something that I'm 100% on, but it is something I do think about. So,
yeah. Well, and that is tough, especially, now with the multitude of matches and all these different pockets of talent all over the country. We do match recons. We run down the winners of the match. And a lot of times I'm like, Who is that? Like, I've never heard of that person, and all of a sudden they're in second place in TAC Ops.
Which is awesome, isn't it? I mean, from a competitive standpoint, it's like, dude, I know every stage I got to be trying to win because I really don't know who's coming to beat me up, you know. and around here, you know, where I could shoot, North Carolina, I mean, it's literally, I don't know if it's the best in the nation, but I got to feel that it is. But any 10 champions could show up to any monthly match, and generally 8 of them do. You know what I mean? Guys that are routinely a threat on the national stage, and you really don't know. It's great to be able to shoot against them all the time and chat with them, run stage with them, and all that. But two, it keeps you in that, like, who's hungry, who's coming next, because there are people gunning for them too. They come out of the woodwork, they come out of, you know, the darkness or whatever, and that to me is fantastic. It just gets stale otherwise, and to see, especially the young kids coming up, and all of a sudden there's some 17-year-old like, 5 seconds faster than me, dude. How'd you do that? I'm like, well, I'm younger, stronger, and faster than you.
Yeah, and I always laugh because that guy's got to have, you know, his dad sitting in the back of the bay so he can actually have a pistol, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
seriously,
you can't even have that, and you're kicking my butt. That's not cool. Yeah, it's a good time. So how did your start in 3-gun begin? So you started you said 2004, shooting 3-gun. A lot has happened between then and now. The matches have completely changed. So what was the landscape like when you got in?
So I got back from my second trip to Afghanistan, and I was like, I should own an M4 because I'm an American. And so I bought one. And I remember when I was a kid, if I'm not mistaken, I would read about the Soldier of Fortune, the 3-gun, the old ones, like when they had a few. Yeah. And I shot a lot of shotgun at kids. It's always been my favorite weapon. And you know, carbines are great, and grew up with a pistol. It's like, man, to put all this together on the clock on all these, you know, crazy ass different every time stages, like that's the sport I want to play, you know, because like I said, trap and skeet, whatever, bullseye, they're all phenomenal shooting sports, but it wasn't what I was wired toward. Like I used to get, my allowance was a brick of 22.
Nice.
Money, I got ammo, and then my dad would take me out to a pond when I was like 9 or 10, and we take the little Federal Lightning boxes of 50 or whatever. You take ammo out and you throw them in the water, and I'd shoot at them as they flowed by, because I had moving targets and a time standard before they got under the bridge, you know. So it was kind of always what I was attracted to. So I got awesome. And those kinds of things are hard to find. Like we didn't know about IPSC or anything like that. And but anyway, so I got in the military, spent a little while you know, doing work, and then I was like, all right, I want to shoot for fun. Also, I read about up the man, I can't remember Frank's last name. There's a place north of here, Oxford, that used to run like a monthly match or quarterly match. They had some other cool matches like recon, like a long range kind of 3-gun match, or a long duration 3-gun match. And I was like, I just want to go shoot one. And there was a guy I was working with. I won't say his name because he still does work, but was the best natural shooter I've ever met. I really don't think I've ever met a more adept natural shooter. He would just go to a match, win it, and then go back to work. He just had it in him. I think he trained a lot, like on the sly. Because even in 04, he could load a shotgun. He knew dope on long range rifles, stuff that wasn't common to just every old Green Beret, you know. And anyway, so I went to a couple matches with him, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And one of the ones we used to go to had like IDPA rules, like 10 rounds in the rifle mag and some other, you know, weird stuff, which is fine, whatever, rules. So it wouldn't even think it wasn't the blazing stuff we're used to, but it was cool, and the people were cool. And because this sport is so diverse and its challenges, it allows for more diverse personalities, and people aren't like wired in so tight on specific things. And so the people were cooler than like the IDPA I was shooting at the time. And so I shot a couple of those, and then got hot and heavy with other career stuff for a while. And then I was in a place where competition was advantageous, you know, like they said, okay, yeah, this is a good thing for you to do. It makes you faster and more accurate. You'll train here, you know, so that doesn't detract from it. And that's when I got back into it. But that was probably a 5-year gap in between that year and the next time I shot it. And but it was always kind of held that special place. Like that, the amount of shots, never the same thing twice. It really isn't. You know what I mean? That's what I like about it, or that's what I think drew me to it the most, was the more I know these guns inside and out, the better I'll be, but there's no telling how the challenge is coming next, you know? So
right. It's always something different to tackle as well.
What's that?
It's always something different to tackle as well, like a different challenge.
Yeah, routinely. Like I don't know if I've ever been to a match and been like, and not had a stage where I was like, I'm not sure how I want to do this. I really don't. And you know, you get wisdom from the craziest places on it. You know, there's a couple guys around here that you wouldn't think to go to for stage design. Shout out to Buddy Brown. He's one of my favorites to go to. That will have an idea on a stage. We're like, fucking genius, man. Dude, that's how I'm going to do it. That's really sharp. And you know, you get to expand your horizon that way, you know? So, but yeah, like you said, there's always something new to tackle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can do this. Let's try it. Kind of thing.
So in that 5-year gap, what was it like getting back in? Was there a lot of changes that you had noticed in the game? Do you feel like, well, I got to catch up now?
Yeah. So it was 5 years. Actually, if before I really shot a 3-gun match on a more competitive level, 7 years, and it was starting to become a sport, more of a tactical analog. You know what I mean? Where there was more of a tactical flavor to it when I was first shooting it, and it was becoming more of a open field kind of sport, or just people wanting to shoot fast and be proficient. And it was starting to grow then. So I don't think I shot another match. My first major was FNH 2010. So
okay.
And that was my second 3-gun match since 2004. I shot a guy named Lynn Baxley put on a match for a couple of us down in Dallas, Texas. We went and shot that. We did okay. It's like, I think I want to keep doing this. And I think I had like an 1187. You know what I mean? I had a LaRue rifle, and I was running the same Glock I run today, the exact same one minus the barrel. And still I had, I was still pulling it out of the cloth mag pouches and stuff. And but it had started to open up more. Now, people had already been shooting as a sport. I just hadn't been in it. So I was starting to meet guys that were non-tactical oriented competitors. And so to start kind of growing that route, like, well, that guy just decimated me on something I should be good at. Like, yeah, because I'm not, there's things you don't have to worry about here that make you faster and more accurate. Okay, right on. Adapt to the sport, And then, so that was probably, I think that was when it was starting to bloom, it seemed like. Like, I came in while it was on its ups. Definitely around here in North Carolina, it went from a couple little matches to monthly matches where 115, 120 people every month, regardless of weather. And I think you still see a lot of those guys in some of the top circles, but it was on its upswing, which was a good time to get in on it.
Right. Well, so now it being, in my perception, it's completely a sport. There's very little tacticalness. I mean, there's some matches you go to where, they try to make it more tactical, but
fair enough.
From my perception, what I see, it's a sport, right?
Yeah.
So spanning that distance from, tactical roots to now it's a sport, like, you've seen a lot of change in there. How do you feel about the state of the sport right now?
Oh, I love the variety in it. Yeah. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about the changes and kind of the fractal movement that we've seen. I love the variety in the sport, like an Andy Horner style match, or an old 3-gun nation style, or like a Bay Stage match, or a USPSA style match, versus like what we run out at the Duskin. I love them all. I mean, my only the thing I'll tell the guys that I shoot with is like, look, the rules are the rules. So read them before you get there. If you don't like it, don't shoot the match, because you're not drafted into it. If you don't like how the prize tables run, if you don't like the scoring, whatever, just don't shoot the match. There's plenty of shooting to be done where you can still support the sport and not do things that make you unhappy. And as long as they're consistent in enforcement of those rules, they're all fun to me. They really are. They're all set. If you want to put, 25-meter bullseye targets up, and I got to shoot for score on every stage, on the clock, new challenge. It really is. It's a new way to run the gun. And if I decide after a match I don't like it, then I'll go shoot other ones, and capitalism will do its job. But yeah, no, I love it. I love the variety in it. We're seeing matches that have more long range, or we had a match up here for a while where all the shots were hard, and every one of them was a technical shot. That's the match, man. mean, that's what you're shooting today. So, and that's a whole new set of challenges. So yeah, I don't have any controversial opinion on it. I actually like all the variety. Hey, the only thing I don't like would be, you know, inconsistent enforcement of the rules. And it's not something we see a lot. You know?
Yeah. And like you said, capitalism usually works when that happens.
That's the truth. Yeah. People are, I mean, match isn't profitable. It's not going to stick around long. I don't think it's an indictment on the match other than it didn't hit its market, you know,
right.
Provided it's a fairly run match, you know. But
yeah. Speaking of variety, you know, one of the things that we always talk about is different divisions. And I'm running a 8-round pump. You can see it there.
Yeah.
And 1X optic in the next match that I'm shooting. Yeah, they've got a special patrol division that limits the capacity of the shotgun, limits it to pump, limited rifle or fixed power rifle.
Across the board, limited to pump?
Yep. So the whole division, again, it's a division. So they do normal limited, normal tac ops, normal open, and then this patrol division, which is meant to encourage LE and military, because it's in Colorado Springs, which is heavily military, right?
Yeah.
And so they're encouraging them to get in. So yeah, they cap it at 8 rounds for the pump for the shotgun, make it a pump. The fixed power optics, so you can run your ACOG style, right? Or you can run unlimited. I'm sorry?
Does it have to be fixed? Not just limited to 1 power, it just has to be fixed?
Yep. So you can run a 3 power if you think it's going to be better. It just has to be fixed. So whatever you start the match with, it has to remain that way.
I can tell you some techniques for shooting an ACOG fast.
I'm sorry?
I can tell you some techniques for shooting an ACOG fast up close.
Well, if this wasn't 3 days away, this would have been a very good conversation. Damn it! I know next time. Yeah, but to round it out, it's 30-round PMags and 15-round pistol mags. So it's like you said, it's one of those things where if you don't like it, you don't shoot it. You go shoot tac ops, you go shoot limited, or you go shoot open or whatever. Yeah. I'm going to try it out because it's interesting for the podcast and it sounds like fun. And then we'll see in a couple of years if that division still exists after the market works itself out.
Yeah, I was an advocate when there was some stuff going back and forth about whether or not to get rid of the pump for heavy. I love shooting a pump so much that I don't care if it makes sense or not. I really don't. Personally, my take on this is whatever. I want a pump to be an A division. I don't give a shit if it's crossbow division. I really don't. Just let me shoot a pump shotgun. So yeah, I heavy is by far my favorite. It's the most fun, but mostly because it's got a pump shotgun in it. So
yeah,
it's a riot. It really is.
I've never shot a pump or a heavy match, a heavy division in a match. Yeah. And I'm definitely going to have to now that I've got the pump shotgun. But I got to tell you, I've had such a kick in the pants shooting the pump shotgun in all our club matches while everyone else is shooting, semi-autos. It's just been so much fun.
Isn't it? Yeah, I agree, man. I totally agree. And honestly, with a little bit of technique, depending on how they set the course, you don't have to lose a lot of time with it.
No.
To be gained. As long as it's not 8 in a row on every array or whatever, you can stay semi-competitive up to a point with it and have a lot of fun. So yeah, man, good luck, dude. Godspeed on it. Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it should be a good time. But yeah, I do like the variety of matches as well. And
what are you running, or can you say?
Yeah, I can say. So this is a Stoeger P3000. So
okay. How you like it?
It's pretty good. It's definitely a very inexpensive shotgun.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Yeah, it has worked every time. So that's all you can ask for.
Man.
I know, but it's one of those things when you take it out of the box, you're like, oh, okay, hope this works.
See where the money went. That's cool, man. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear how you do, man. Good luck.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. It should be a good time, but that's a little side note there. But I want to kind of switch gears here. So we've been talking about training a little bit, and I just had on a young lady on the podcast. Her name's Heather Miller. Do you know who that is?
No, never heard of her.
Never heard of her? Okay, well, she's this young lady, shoots in North Carolina. I think she lives with you. And
is that who that is? I'm wondering. We got a squatter upstairs.
Yeah. So,
I love her.
Yep. So I had Heather on recently. We were talking about the IPSC World Shoot, and she did a lot of training leading up to it in a very short amount of time because she was switching from traditional TAC Ops division, which she normally shoots, to open, which is a completely different platform. You're going from tube fed shotgun to box fed or box magazine shotgun, and a lot of different things to accommodate that as far as technique. So she credits you for a lot of her success, and several people that I've spoken with have said, look, you need to ask Eric about technique and training, because Heather rocked that open shotgun way more than anyone had anticipated. So I don't know if they were underselling Heather or she just really rocked it that hard. But
no, I got to tell you, because I was going to get all like mad about why did they switch her at the last minute, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But honestly, in the long run, she'll get another shot at the World Shoot again, I have no doubt. And we both got to learn a whole new gun. She got to learn a new skill set. But her performance, just watching her compared to a lot of, her peers or whatever, she took what I was trying to accomplish to a much higher level than I thought we'd be able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. And my goal was two things. One, I knew there was going to be problems because it's an open gun, and we were having problems early on. So whatever. So to work on the mental game, not the mental game in general, but also stay in the fight. I used to say, or I still say when I'm training someone, never waste a malfunction. You have a malfunction on the range, work through it at competition or combat speed or whatever. Work through it, get that whatever you think is right, get it back through there and finish the drill or add another shot in or something. Get done, stop, and review what you just did. Was it the best way to do this? What did I see? What did I not see? So I knew that was going to be a lot of what we were doing until we got the gun running. But the other thing that I wanted was reflexive recoil management, like being able to drive the gun, or reflexive gun management. And so there was a lot of turning and short movement, a lot of weird angles, a lot of shooting back in different directions. A lot of for early on, it didn't have anything to do with the match. It was just about building the ability to kind of keep your weight in the right spot, to drive the gun with your hips, et cetera, et cetera. Where to have your shoulder at all times, things that would put her out off axis, but still have to maintain recoil or manage recoil. And that was one of the key things I wanted to build, was getting kind of like the spine, central nervous system, where it was out of its norm, but still having to do the right thing, and build that range of motion, and just reflexive driving of the dot, like linking your eye or linking what you see to what your body's doing to manage it shot to shot. When I saw some video of her shooting, I was like, dude, she is shooting better than I would. Like, no shoulder movement, no, like she's running full up ammo, just killing it. I've only seen a couple of videos. Like the Fiocchi's a good one, but if you focus on the times where she's shooting and moving, it looks like a 22. Like she took it like 100%, took it to the next level, way better than I thought that we were going to get to accomplish in that. And I was super impressed. I was showing all my friends in the parking lot, like, you don't shoot this good, And I know she had some technical issues, but super, super proud, because it wasn't easy. I mean, it was a lot of grind and a lot of kind of getting outside our comfort zone on our relationship versus the coach-student kind of thing. And it's something we went into very decidedly, after a lot of thought on both our parts, and kind of made an agreement early on, like, all right, if we go to the range, you're going to the World Shoot. If you want me to train you, a coach can never be disrespectful, but I do have to be direct. And so if you get in a bad mental state or something like that, I got to get you back on. He was like, yeah, we'll do it. And she was 100%. It was awesome. So yeah, and I didn't realize how much root it had taken in her, her physical ability to run the gun until I saw the video. I was like, I don't think I'm that good, So, so it was awesome, yeah. But there was a lot of, like, every night was kind of thinking about, all right, what hasn't she seen yet? What's going to be a new sensation for her ankles, knees, hips, and stuff like that will cause her to have to react to it, to the point where eventually there's not much she will see over there that hasn't been something we haven't trained through before. And I'm talking down at the basic, like I said, proprioception, like where her body is in space kind of stuff. Not necessarily accuracy. We shot everything full choke. We shot a lot of small targets, a lot of super close non-threats. But I was more interested in, can she drive the dot as fast as that gun will run? And man, she did great. So, but yeah, that was the plan, and it worked. I mean, she made me look like a much better coach than I am, I think. So, kind of wish the gun would have run, but what are you going to do? That's life. And I think she made it. She did good. It's kind of like getting your butt kicked in a wrestling tournament. It's like, I just don't just want to not get my ass kicked bad enough to where we where we lose a bunch of points. Right. And she did that. She did a ton of damage control. She stayed in the game mentally. It was very impressive. That's her first time on a stage that big. So, you know, and that's something we talked about a lot, you know, getting, you know, working on proper rehearsal, working on, you feel down right now because there's a lot of frustrating stuff going on. How do we get to where you think you can win again? Mm-hmm. And yeah, she soaked it all up like a champ, you know, a true champ. So it was really impressive.
Well, when you talk about reflexive recoil management, you know, it's a light. I don't know. They seem like they're lighter guns. They're more compact, right? And it seems like more the recoil is coming in than like a tube shotgun.
They've got compensators, so you get that going. But I think they have more reciprocating mass. So after the comp's done working, you still got the bolt to deal with.
Well, then you have to use higher power loads with open shotguns too, right? So the comp works.
We were running. I don't remember. I'd have to ask Heather. We were running, I think, 1200. So she normally runs a Benelli. She's got to run 1250s, 1200s on average anyway.
Okay.
Belt recoil in her Benelli, you know, when I shoot it, was sharper with the Benelli than it was with the open gun with the Vepr, the dissonant arms gun.
Okay.
But it was a longer kind of push. Like I run piston guns in competition, and they seem like they have a different recoil profile. It's a little bit more of a push than a snap, but properly tuned, I think each of them, like total amount of energy delivered is the same. I don't have any data on that, but this is what it feels like. So right. I think it's just a matter of her getting used to the push versus the punch, and then building that into, you know, we're all doing active management when we shoot fast. I don't care how steady you are. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are all reacting on every shot, and it's a learned reflex. So when I say reflexive recoil management, I don't mean acting after the fact. I mean that your body's doing it as you're taking the shot. So it's probably a better word for it. But yeah, so I think that kicks less overall. It just pushes. It feels like it's a longer push. I don't know.
Sure. Well, so training that reflexive recoil management, how do you do that? Like how did you change her body mechanics to allow her to perform so well?
It all starts down with the toes. You know, you can watch somebody shoot, and if their toes are coming off the ground while they're shooting, then you got to start down there. You know, balls to feet, where your weight's at, and that kind of balanced triangle stuff. You know, that's physically where it starts. So you're driving the hips towards the target, turning with your lower body, those kinds of things. But reality is the only way she can realize if she's doing it right or not, or anybody can realize they're doing it right or not, is the visual cues downrange. Is my sight moving around a lot? Am I snapping it back down on target fast, or am I shooting fast target to target? You know what I mean? Because there's people that can kind of dolphin it or porpoise it target to target, but you'll see actually suffer over prolonged shooting. They get farther back in their stance and all that. When you're actually driving the gun, when you're using your vision to train your body what I have to do to keep it on target, then yeah, you get a little more reflexive. It's a little more proactive in how you manage it. Watching that slide track, you know, back into the target. Now you can spend 10,000 rounds learning it yourself, or you can get somebody to kind of watch you and tell you why, you know, biomechanically, here are things that will move you ahead quite a bit. You know, several thousand rounds of practice if you fix where your weight's at, or you fix how you drive the gun, or whatever, fix how your shoulder is going into it. And there's a lot of crossover, a lot of sports. So, you know, I think MMA is a great sport, or even basketball, stuff like that. But if you don't have a sports background, then you kind of just have to start from, you know, to the point of, all right, hold the gun out and push on it until they feel themselves moving. All right, stop me from moving you. And I mean, literally talking, you know, 10 pounds of force. All right, that's about where you need to be, and then getting them back there all the time, and then training their eye to see that. You know? So.
Right. Okay. So when you're talking about like a similar sport, like not a similar sport, but when you're talking about another sport, like say weightlifting, for example, you get cues from a coach of, you know, weight in your feet, head up, chin up, eyes forward, stuff like that. What kind of cues were you giving Heather to help with that recoil management?
So it normally starts, like I said, I go from the ground up. I'm a pretty simple person. So I go from the ground up. If I'm seeing toes move or whatever, if toes are moving, the weight's on their heels, bottom line. If they're coming up off the ground rather, then typically, I can't say 100% about anything, but, you know, typically it means their weight's on their heels. And there's really no way to manage recoil over several shots from there. Or there's more effective ways to do it anyway. So getting the weight forward on the balls of the feet without, you don't have to be on tiptoes or anything like that. So the first thing I look at is that, and then kind of where the knees are at. You know, one of the easiest way to get the weight forward is just kind of move your knees to where it's natural to get the weight there. You don't have to have some crazy ass squat or anything like that. Just getting the weight forward. Then some of the other things going up the body. If I'm turning to shoot, driving it. So keeping your heels light allows you to drive the gun with your lower body. And even if I'm slightly out of stance when I turn to the right to shoot something to the right, I still have my weight where I want it. And it's vastly more effective than being on the balls of my feet facing that way, where my whole body is rotated off axis, upper body has. And now I'm trying to fight. Now you wind up basically having to fight on your heel, or to shoot on your heel. But so just learning how to kind of drive the gun with your lower body is something that I focus on a lot with her and a lot of people. But then after that, it's kind of keeping your shoulder squared, not giving it room to move. If I'm shooting with the shoulder back, it's going to use any place that I give the gun to move, it's going to take it. So I want it to try to move straight back into me. So I want to be perpendicular to where the gun's slamming. I mean, it's the best force vector, right? So just things like that. Biggest thing I look at is the feet, the knees, the hips, and then what am I doing with my shoulder, and also not having extra movement in the upper body. Like I get nothing from having arms out. I get a lot, biomechanically from having them down, which are easy fixes. But the hardest thing is just teaching them to be confident in driving with their lower body, and once their eyes start seeing the benefit to it and they get the movement down a little bit, it's something that sticks with them. So. And I'd be really interested in hearing from anybody listening if they have a better way or if they think that I'm wrong, because it's been effective in my small circle. So I'm always looking to learn. So if anybody has feedback, I'm listening.
Cool. Yeah. If you got feedback for Eric, you can always leave a comment wherever you see this, whether that's YouTube, Facebook, on the blog, or something like that. And if he doesn't notice it, I will draw his attention to it.
Appreciate it.
All right, Eric, I want to switch. Or actually, Heather just chimed in. She said that she was shooting 1250s.
Oh, right on. Yeah, pull up. Yeah, hardcore. Yeah. I don't shoot that fast. I shoot 1145s.
You wimp.
Hey, shoot what I can shoot, man.
All right, man. Well, I want to switch gears again here and to stick on our topic of nerdery, weapons grade nerdery that we said we were going to talk about here. And one of the things that has come up frequently when I've spoken to you at matches like after hours or whatever, when we're hanging out in the parking lot at Rock Castle or something like that, or drying out from Hurricane Nationals, is long range shooting. You seem to have like quite the proficiency at long range, and you've gotten into some topics of and I can't even I can't even recall that's like how much it blew my mind of like wobble, gyroscopic stability, et cetera, and I think you're super proficient in that, and I think a lot of the audience can gain a lot from it. So what are like some things that three gunners miss about long range shooting that you think can provide value and help us engaging those long range targets that we typically consider like 200 to 500, 200 to 600 yards?
Yeah. So the key to accuracy, especially at long range, is consistency. So starting out, I think when you're picking equipment, it's got to be a whole firing solution that's accurate to begin with. It's got to run first. I don't care how accurate or soft or whatever it is, it doesn't run, and nobody should. But after that, it's got the whole, your bullet, your scope, your rifle, you all have to be an accurate package together, and they have to be consistent. Once you have something that prints well, and I'm not talking like shooting 5 groups and one of them is good, so it's an inch gun, like what we're all 5, because that's what the gun is. One out is indicative of something. 1 out of 20 rounds is indicative of something. It's whether or not it's in the noise that we want to accept is up to you. So starting out with a good, consistent platform and good, consistent technique is basically where you jump off. And really long range requires a lot of practice. I'm not a great bullseye shooter. Like when I go to zero a gun, I have to lay down behind a gun and visualize a perfect shot, or I get lost in the noise of the reticle sometimes. And I don't mean like a busy reticle. I actually, my mind will start to drift after 15, 20 rounds of like, whatever shiny thing, butterfly. I have to focus. I have to see a perfect shot before I shoot it. And that's something that I know about myself. It's taken a while to figure that out, but it definitely helps a lot when I'm doing it. So all that, finding that consistent firing solution first. After that, there's some really, really smart people. I am so fortunate the people I've been able to shoot with and train with and work with over the years. I wish I could list them all. The guys that are just 40-pound brains that are actually very functionally intelligent too, that are able to put the two together or take data from someone else and apply it, extrapolate it into long range shooting. Because it really does come down to, like I said, weaponized nerds. If I want to hit at a mile, I want to hit at 1,000 meters, I got to know all of that. I got to know how accurate is the gun bullet me together. I got to be able to read wind and know what it does to the bullet, all the variances in that, things like cant and everything else that goes into it, and be able to apply that to, can I hit this target in a given amount of time? And I'm talking practical, tactical application, but also same old is true in ours, in our competition realm. And so I've gotten to work with a lot of guys that figure that stuff out, or they walk up like, all right, this, that, okay, this is probably what we need. So because of all that work that's gone into it, it's really been in the last decade-ish. I'm not going to say his last name, but there's a guy, Todd, we call Sniper, a couple of us call Sniper Jesus, has been like an integral part of, taking the theoretical side and putting it into the practical side and allowing us to push guns out past what they are by basically just saying, all right, here's what everybody says this is supposed to do. Let's go shoot and see it. Literally, like, let's put up a piece of drywall and see what it does. Well, it didn't do that. So what is it doing? And got with like rocket science guys and stuff. So now there's a lot of, there's apps and things like that where once you get that good, consistent, accurate platform, you can get the data off it, put it in a program, and you can give yourself pretty reliable dope. Where for a given range and, out to a certain point, you can get pretty reliable with limited amount of data. Where a lot of people lose it is they're inconsistent in getting that data. So it was an inaccurate gun to begin with, or they fudged something here, or they didn't put something in right to the gun or something like that, or they're just not shooting as straight as they thought they did. That's another big one. So, on its face, it's pretty basic. Execution still requires practice, more so, I think, than almost anything else in the sport. I don't think I answered your question.
No, not at all. That was interesting, though.
I told you, man. You got to rein me in on this.
Okay, so it's so talking about things people miss. So you're starting with a reliable, consistent platform, right? And then visualizing your shot. You're drawing a picture.
No, I'm writing down what you're saying because otherwise we're going to do this again.
No, I was recapping what you were saying.
Okay.
So, from there, what is it then that we're missing as far as like achieving those long range shots in a match?
All right. So yeah, removing consistency from the thing or from the equation, because I want to double tap on this. If you're changing lots of ammo, 155 grain is not the same as the other. 177 is not the same as the other. Lot to lot, they're different, and they can have huge differences. Also, going from zeroing in Texas and shooting in Rocky Mountain can have a past 300-400 with a 5.56 gun. You can make a miss. It's a big enough change in density altitude to make a miss. So there's a lot of things in there that once we start pushing the range out with these lower ballistic coefficient guns, that can start making you miss that you would never think about 300 in, right? So there's that, and that requires getting on the range and learning about it. The other thing is you might not be shooting as well as you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of wobble, a half MOA, let's say an MOA, let's say 2 MOA wobble is going to get you hits on most things in 3-gun. But even if it's a 3 MOA target out at range, you got a MOA and a half gun, 2 MOA and a half gun. You add in 2 MOA wobble, which is like super tight shooting, honestly. Like if you can keep that thing 2 MOA shot to shot, I want lessons. But now you're stacking all these these keyholes together, where it might just come. You might have a super accurate gun, you might have the right dope, and you might not be shooting as well as you think. The only way to know that is to get on a range and shoot at stuff, and shoot at it under the right conditions, not belly shoot or shoot off a rest or anything like that. Hang off a chain, grab side of a post or something like that, and really find, like, I think most people, especially, shooters getting good these days. There's a lot more proficiency in the sport than some people give it credit for. I think most people see right away, oh man, no wonder, because not a lot of people get the opportunity to train on a long range. If you're serious about it, then you kind of got to find a way. I don't have an answer for that, but if you're serious about getting better in the sport, you do have to find a way to get yourself to the range. Doesn't take, if you really want to win, it takes a lot. It takes some time on the long range. It's so important, it's so wickedly important. But it doesn't take a ton just to get an idea for what your actual pace is. You know what I mean? If you've never trained off the clock, you might go on there thinking you're going to be a certain pace. Get out there and see it. See what can I actually hold on a 3-way target at 400 or something like that. How long does it take me to make those shots, and shoot that pace? Because going 1-for-1 is going to be faster than, almost anything else. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Like all the data and all the nerdery notwithstanding, get on the range and see what you can actually hit, and see what see what it takes for you to hit, and then shoot that pace until you get better, until you get more time on the range. Shoot that pace. Visualize when you're thinking about. I get up to long range, I got 250, 275, then it goes out to 450. It might be whack, whack, whack. How long is it going to take me to hit those? What can you realistically do? Knowing that is going to make you a good shooter. Going to make you a better shooter, So.
So what are some low hanging fruit type of maybe drills or tips that you can give people for working in their practice to make them better at matches?
Overall?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. On the same topic, long range shooting.
Oh, first of all, we go back to the mental game. Whatever you're going to do, have a set standard for it. Don't just go let the drill happen. I'm going to shoot whatever plates up or shoot at whatever rock I see, or whatever you're going to do, just do that. It's just like a stage. You get very little variance. You know what I mean? We can make things happen on the fly, but the stage is the stage. And I see that on the range a lot where, okay, this happened, so now I'm doing this. If there's 50 clays on a berm that you're shooting at, pick the ones you are going to shoot at and only shoot at those. Don't accept where your sight falls, because it's so easy when you have a dearth of targets to, like, whatever my natural point aim is, shoot and hit it. Like, well, shooting's easy. Yeah, but, if you really want to be that easy, then learn to make your natural point aim the actual target. That's a step on the path. But, if you're not in the right position, get over there, or get the reticle over there. So know exactly what you're going to shoot when you shoot it. And then visualize it. Really work on that mental game. How am I going to get into this? And at first, especially early on in your career, if you've never really worked at it, that's going to be hard to do. It's going to be a lot of white noise with little bits and pictures of shooting. That's how it is in my addled mind. So yeah, when I'm off my game, when I haven't practiced in a while, it's a lot of garbage and then just little bits of it. The goal is to be able to see it from the buzzer all the way through to the last shot. How is this going to go down to the point of feeling it, smelling it, seeing it, hearing it, all that, especially seeing it. But yeah, work on that prior to dry run it. Getting in and out of rifle positions is super important. It's several seconds, and it can add multiple seconds if you're in a bad position and try to make it work. So being efficient in and out of those is worth dry firing a lot, like worth a day or more, maybe just doing that. Just getting into and getting out of the position, and finding what works for you. Where am I stable? Some guys can do certain things, other guys can't, go to yoga. I don't know, whatever. But I really think it's a skill for long range shooting. But yeah, so drilling that over and over again, in and out of those positions, finding what works for you is important. Then shoot the drill, and then get up and visualize doing it right. Don't think if it's right or not, because if you hit all the targets you didn't. But when you get up off the drill, see it again perfectly. And step back, take a breather, see it perfectly just like that, and then execute. So that's pretty low hanging fruit. You can do that with shooting down a country road, or whatever's legal for you. Shooting down a power line road, targets out 300-400. easy target. I don't give it doesn't matter what they are, just things that you have to hit in an order that you know you're supposed to hit them. Write it out first, whatever, codify it before you go into it, visualize it, execute, see it done rightly, and then execute again. You know what I mean? So that requires range, which I don't have an answer for people that don't have range, because you really do. There's no true substitute. There are some things you can do at closer range. You can shoot smaller targets, and paper never lies. Shoot paper if you can. But if you can get out to even 300 and just shoot 2 MOA targets, then if you work through that with that kind of discipline, just getting in and out of the positions, getting comfortable, getting stable, working on your breathing and all that, then you're going to be way ahead of the game. 400. I mean, what's 400 really? What's 500 really? If you know the principles, and you don't.
Well, off the topic of, like, I don't know what to do with you if you can't find long range. Just go find long range.
Yeah, no, man, I don't want to be trite about like people's like training situations because I don't have an answer for them.
Yeah,
but find it. Pick a weekend, pick something. That like a good weekend, a long range is worth more than your monthly match. If you're trying to progress, there are things you got to let drop off. If you get the opportunity to go out and train with somebody that does good practical long range, PRS guys are good. They got a lot of knowledge and stuff. They have a slightly different discipline. The gas gun series guys are great guys to go shoot with. Always great guys to go shoot with. Well, they're all great to shoot with, but that like getting in a position efficiently and all that, like they may have more accoutrements than what like a 3-gunner does, but there's still a lot of crossover. Their accuracy standards are a little higher than what we see a lot in 3-gun. Knowledge of ballistics, comfort shooting the gun. It's all worth your time, but just getting out, like I said, man, if you can find somebody with a power line road out to 300 and you want to go and put some clays out or something like that, be honest with yourself about the clays, though. Splash don't count.
Come on.
But yeah, like you can make it happen, and I think to be competitive long term, you've got to nail down long range.
Yeah,
you got to be comfortable with it. It's probably the fastest gains you'll see outside of movement are long range. Not just counting the overall mental picture, but if you can clean up your long range, you're going to see, I think, equivalent gains to movement over a match. Like literally 15, 20 seconds in a match on one stage, so. And movement will be in that realm too for a 6-stage match.
Yeah, it's very true. And, again, like to pile on what you said, like everybody does have different things to deal with, but if you can find like one day of a month to go out to a long range, like for me, there's probably 12 minutes away, there's a indoor range. I could go shoot my AR there, but I choose to drive 2 hours out to a place where I can get 600 yards.
Yeah, totally worth it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're just a normal person in a match, you don't have to be the friendliest or whatever. If you're just normal at most 3-gun matches, you can find people to train with.
Yeah.
Especially you want to make yourself invaluable on long range, learn how to spot.
Oh, okay.
Be willing to run the scope. Like learn how to see trace, which doesn't take that long. It's not that magical. But be able to spot for the guy that's also shooting, and then show up on the days where it's fucking 100 degrees or whatever and spot for him, and you will get to train together. Everybody wants a good spotter. You know what I mean? So you can learn other skills that make you valuable to people that already have access to long range, that you'll find avenues. You know what I mean?
I just thought of something that would make you really valuable to someone who wants to train long range shooting, and that would be being the guy that owns the targets that you put out there.
There you go. That's another investment, right? A long range rifle target shooting 5.56 at, your kids will have that. It's never going to get one.
Yeah, it's true.
Just don't shoot 300 Norma at it or something like that. And it'll be fine for life. You might have to replace some bolts and stuff, but it's a worthwhile investment. But yeah, definitely you'll have people hitting you up. That's sharp. I agree with that.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, so along that same line, when you go out to practice long range, like say we're talking about like a 425-yard target or whatever, are you putting paper out there, or are you putting steel out there? I've heard people talk about both. How do you do it yourself?
Well, past 200, I mean, I zero and group and do testing for whomever. We do, most of us will do it at 200 because for, 0.4 BC and lower stuff, 200 meters and in, past that, the wind starts to become an issue. And you you can test around the knowledge that the wind's variable. You can look at your vertical, whatever. But it's the problem with 200 or problem with paper past 200. It's hard as hell to see the holes in the paper. Like you have to walk down. I mean, even when the shoot and see target passes, like on a high mirage day, like it's on there. Like I see yellow, So that's really. I mean, there are some logical or some functional restraints to where paper's valuable. I think it's valuable at a mile. I think shooting a sheet of drywall at a mile gives you a lot of data. But can you get feedback without riding out to a four-wheeler? No, you're never gonna see that. So no, I think for me, and I'm sure there's people that could disagree, but for me, it passed 200 meters, so 220 yards. That's where I shoot paper at, and it gives me a very good idea of what my gun's doing with the bullet it has in it, accuracy-wise, and it lets me know when guns are getting shot out. If it's a good gun-bullet combo, it really it exaggerates any kind of error that I'm having without being so far away that mirage and wind and things like that can add little bits into it. Just a little bit of mirage is enough to make the target dance a little. 220 yards and in, it still happens, but it's mitigated. So I don't shoot paper much past that. We zero a lot of our long guns at 100. All my competition stuff I do at 200 meters, so 110 yards, 220 yards. But past that, the functionality goes down. It's more for fun. The F-class guys and all those guys, they know how to handle it. They know how to work around it. They're great guys to shoot with too. But for day-to-day stuff, 200 meters, 220 yards.
Got it. So then if you're practicing something long, like 3-gun long, then you'll put out steel.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Not only do I like steel, but I like having stuff behind the steel, because guessing why I'm not shooting well doesn't help anybody,
Yeah.
But I haven't talked about it yet because it's I don't know why I haven't talked about it yet, but learning how to just read conditions is pretty much everything. Once you've got the gun doped, it's gonna shoot like an accurate gun is gonna shoot the same spot every time, but the world still has a vote and where that bullet goes.
So I love that. That's a great way of putting it.
So learning all that, seeing the whole wind and understanding the differences in atmosphere and being able to account for that both digitally and functionally on the range, like that's the gold standard, like learning how to spot, like we were talking earlier about being the guy behind the scope. If you start learning some very simple sniper math or some wind calling math and start adjusting your eye to the vegetation, the terrain, stuff like that, you can get down to like within 20 miles an hour below, you can be within a mile an hour or two accurate by eye. And you can start putting the whole wind solution together on long range shots with a lot of practice and a good shooter and a good gun. But you don't have to be that dialed in. You have to know generally is like when I started, the wind's blowing my hat off my face one way and I get down by the gun, I see it laying down the other way. If I hold left like I thought I was supposed to, I'm never going to hit. You know what I mean? So knowing that and having feedback and being able to immediately coach myself. So if I have steel out at 300-400, being able to see impact, it lets me know what I'm doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It might generally it'll do something like remind me, like, idiot, the wind changed, or like, like you're watching a water bottle blow this way, and you're holding that way. Come on, man, you get paid to do this, man. Wake up. So yeah, having that, like, rather than just kind of guessing in space where the bullets are going, if you can set them up to where you can see impact, don't use it as a crutch.
Right.
It's easy to do. Don't just walk them on, which is an effective combat technique, but not great for other things. But not great for learning. But yeah, if you if you're not hitting with what you're supposed to be hitting with, if you stop and look why, you'll be that much faster, more proficient in the future. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So I'll second that. Having something behind it definitely adds to it. The range I shoot at right now, the berms suck. They're tiny. Yeah, they're tiny. So it's basically you're using the run out until you get to 600. But that's hard to call your shot on that. But going back to what you were talking about reading conditions, tell me more about that. Like if I haven't made it abundantly clear, I'm a civilian. I have no background in it in anything that you do. So start me from like how, if I step on a stage, tell me what I'm supposed to be observing and what I'm supposed to be taking in about the conditions.
In reference to long range?
Yes.
Yeah. So going into it, I mean, you should already take into account the more static elements of the the atmospheric stuff. If you've got a powder temperature variability table built, okay, fine. So yeah, some powders burn a lot faster when they're hot, and knowing that, like this goes way into the weaponized nerdery stuff. Modern powders, there's a lot of good ones out now that are less sensitive, but they're all kind of. So you got two options: learn it and be able to gauge it, or keep your ammo the same temperature all the time. That's the ideal. Keep it in your car. Don't let it sit out in the sun. Your long range ammo. Anyway, but the other thing that can change match to match, it doesn't necessarily change in the low ground where I'm at that much, but is the density altitude. So it's a function of the temperature, the barometric pressure, and I think to a lesser extent the humidity. All those go into the density altitude. So you can either learn how to put in TPH, temperature, pressure, humidity, into your thing, or put in density altitude. They both come in the same. They both come in the algorithm the same way. But that can change. I mean, if a storm comes in, the density altitude is going to drop. There's going to be less resistance, probably more wind, but less resistance as the bullet goes through. It's not going to slow down as fast. Just keeping that up to date is pretty easy. You can get on most of the apps and just find the closest airport. And if you're not a couple thousand feet above the closest airport, you're fine. So places like Rocky Mountain, you want to get, Kestrel or something like that. But most places, just get whatever the local stuff is. Keep that up to date. And then so that's the big condition, or that's the one over the world conditions. After that, it is really just about reading the wind. And even if starting out as a 3-gunner, if you just learn the difference between 3, 6, 9, and 12 mile an hour wind, or if that's too much, 5, 10, 15 mile an hour wind, and kind of bracket it out to there's a lot of reticles out there that have dots that are somewhat calibrated for a generic 5.56 round or 7.62 round. They're close enough for 3-gun. They really are. And there you can do a lot with truing a reticle to your bullet, but we can get into that much later. You want to talk about real nerdery, but generally they're close, and getting out and shooting in those conditions, letting if they're not, or running something like Straylock Pro where it's got the reticle, putting in the wind for your given conditions, because at a higher density altitude, the wind's going to have a less severe effect on the bullet at that at that speed. So, but just if you get all the right numbers into the computer, it'll actually show you like 5 mile an hour dot's really a 4 mile or 6 mile an hour dot or something like that. So you can have some of the machine do that for you, but it's all useless if you can't look downrange and see what 4, 8, 12, whatever it looks like.
Yeah.
How you do that is you go to the range, you do all the rest of it right, you make a guess on what the wind is. And with a good shooter, he shoots exactly what you say, you see what it is, and you reverse engineer. I called that 9 miles an hour. It was actually 7. That's what 7 looks like. You take your second. Or every time you get out of the car, you pop out your Kestrel. I think it's 11 miles an hour. 13. You know what I mean? And you can start calibrating yourself, because what 20 miles an hour looks like in West Texas looks like a hurricane in North Carolina. You know what I mean? Like, there are differences in the places, and you have to learn the difference. So, like, there was stuff actually coming out of the trees at 20 miles an hour here. They barely move in West Texas at 20.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So you do have to account for that a little bit. But I'll tell you what, if in doubt, shoot what you feel. Because if you feel a lot of wind on the left side of your face, shoot to the left side of the target. Because even if it changes down range, that bullet's going to get blown right out of the barrel. It's not just going to straighten when, unless enough wind blows it back the other direction. But it's a good start. If you can't do anything else, which is hard to read in-depth wind through a 6-power scope while on the clock. But if in doubt, just shoot what you're feeling at the site. Just hold left edge, hold on the target left edge, and walk them in from there. Shoot in front of the target and walk them up from there. Another technique.
I tell you what, man, it's hard to feel any wind at all on the clock for me.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of other shooters do that too. Like even really good shooters, they're holding like you said, the right side of the target, and the wind shifted, and we're all standing back looking up at the American flag and like, holy shit, the wind's going a completely different direction now.
And I'm sure I've been this guy too, especially shooting down south when it's dry. You're holding right, and your bullet's hitting right, and the dust comes up and flies right, but you keep holding right anyway.
Yep, hold farther right now.
Telling you to hold right now, man. Everything's telling you that. Pay attention. I've been that guy too. I have plenty of times. It's just like I said, it's using that, going back AAR and after action review. and coaching yourself into what did I miss? Now let's think about what it would be right. But because the signs are there, they really are there. Like if there's anything flying up at the target and you're not getting any hits, if you can see it laying down in one direction, hold the other side. Or if you can see impact, that's another part to shooting long range really well in three, especially in 3-gun and PRS and whatnot, is having such a well-built position that you can see impact. Because if you can see impact, you're golden. If you knew where the reticle was when that gun went off, bro, that next shot's gonna be a hit. It should be, because you should be able to just move the solution wherever that was in the reticle onto the target. So if all else fails, just build a good position, I guess, But and then try to learn from that. But yeah, learning wind is all about getting out on the range with somebody who can shoot well and doing it. Having that formula ahead of time, and then applying it and making adjustments off what you see.
Would you say like once you have everything dialed in, like as far as like the current atmospheric condition, like density, altitude, that wind is the most important thing to think about other than gravity, I would assume?
Other than the shooter himself, wind is the only real variable. I don't want to say only. I hate using absolutes, but it's the biggest variable. There are other things that can change, granted, but yeah, wind is that thing that's constantly changing. You constantly have to account for. As a spotter outside of a tactical scenario, it's the number one thing on your mind. Once you get the guy on target, it's just all about the wind, because the up and elevation, everything else is really pretty simple. It's not going to change a ton shot to shot. It infinitesimally small changes shot to shot, but the wind can change. It can be 0.4 one way, 0.8 the other, back and forth, depending on what kind of valley or bowl you're in. It could be happening shot to shot. So it is absolutely, it's the most dynamic part of shooting outside of the shooter actually keeping the gun on target. Yeah, and yeah, I think I stand by that.
So say that you're on deck on a rifle stage, you personally, and you're holding your rifle, you're waiting to make ready for long range. You're going to have a bunch of shotgun and pistol in between. You're watching the guy ahead of you finish up on the long range. What are you paying attention to?
Yeah, so what I feel, and then if I can see dust from his impacts or where he's hitting, if the guy's missing a lot, it'll generally be a downwind miss. He'll be undercompensating for the wind generally, But if I can see any kind of downrange effects, I'm looking at that for sure. Because probably he's holding center or undercompensating for the wind. So even if you're under one way or the other, it's going downwind. And then just what I feel, and if the two correlate, then awesome. But if you're looking down over a field where you can see the grass, you'll see like it's the perfect wind diagram of what actually is going on. And all that's neat for doing the math later on. But for like, I'm on deck holding the gun, what do I feel and where's he hitting? If they're all going to the right, I know I'm holding more left, assuming I don't just think his gun's messed up or whatever.
Right.
But the other thing I'm looking for is variability. Is it changing while I'm standing there? Is it blowing around? Am I watching streamers and garbage and stuff like that go back and forth? Am I seeing and feeling it? Because if it's highly variable, which it is in a lot of the places that we shoot, because if you think about looking down a valley, if I'm shooting down that valley, let's just say the wind does this. It's now moving me right and left of the target, just in that little bit as it bounces down the valley. And wind is essentially, probably not physically correct, but it's essentially a fluid. It's going to flow down these things like water.
Right.
Maybe it is correct. I don't know. But it'll do its little bits with the other eddies and currents and stuff that come into it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it can feel like one thing, but in certain scenarios, man, it doesn't take a lot. If I'm getting 3 miles an hour this way, I'm going off the target that way. As soon as it just changes 30, 40 degrees, I'm going off the other way. So I know that as I get up there, if I'm not feeling it because the red rage is upon me because I heard the standby command, and I have to be looking down range, So yeah, on the times when I'm doing it right, that's I'm looking for what can I see going up to it, or is there any other indicator down there? Hope there's grass or a flag or something. If not, then it's impacts.
Right.
And if not that, then I box around the target till I hit it.
So we were talking about the flow state before, where you kind of like take a back seat to watch what your body and your subconscious mind are doing to execute. Do you think that long range shooting is one of those where you pull out of a flow state, or do you think there's a flow state for long range shooting as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because as you're asking, I'm thinking, it's not like you're in the back seat. It's like you're in the periscope of the submarine. Like you are only seeing one tiny bit of what's going on, and all the rest of it that's required to achieve that solution. I mean, that's like a Tremor 3, that's H59. There's a lot going on in those reticles. But once you get used to them, they're not busy at all. They're not fine enough. Like you look for, like once you get used to 0.2 mils, you're like, can we go to 0.05? Like I can see more. And you're really down in that bit of, just left of this dot or just right of that line or whatever. And all the other things that go into it, somebody else is doing that. So it's weird. That's a great question. I never really thought about it that way. Shooting pistol, shotgun, all that, like I really feel like I'm in a drone.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you get in the scope, that's it. And it's just all the other, somebody else is running it to try to get what I want up 1.2, right 0.4. Get it there, all right, now shoot, you know what I mean?
I like that analogy. That's good.
So yeah, weird. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but it is true. It still doesn't feel like you're trying to make every bit happen. You know what I mean? It just now your focus is shifted to a very finite. I have a very tiny box to keep this thing pointed. So now I got a hold of that, whereas some of the other stuff, it's like, I just got to make sure I am moving correctly or whatever. But yeah, no, interesting. Never thought about it that way.
Yeah. I'm going to think about that one all the way home now. So Eric, I got one last long range related question for you, and then we'll switch to the chat here and take some questions from the people listening. But if you're setting out like a practice session, like you personally, you've gone out with your rifle and you're doing a long range practice session, how much ammo are you dedicating to one practice session?
Yeah, Dave, I think I've gotten to a point in my life where any more than 200 rounds of anything in a day, and I'm just burning ammo. And I was talking to a guy about this morning, actually. It's really easy to go out with a set amount of ammo and just screw the whole end of it up. If past a point where you're not training anymore, or you're just trying to make a certain thing happen, like I just want to draw in 0.8 second, or draw and fire in 0.8 second. Like what else are you doing wrong there? I don't know. You know what I mean? But there's a point where I hit about the 200 round mark, and it's not productive anymore. Long range ammo, long range training, I can go longer, but what am I really training for? Now, like testing and stuff, as many rounds as it takes. Like I can focus on breathing, trigger control, sight alignment, all that stuff for whatever. But actually getting in a competition mindset, actually being effective with the gun, I don't have a lot more than 200 rounds in me. But in those 200 rounds, like, it doesn't have to be 200 rounds in a row. There's a lot you can do. That can take 4 or 5 hours, depending on what you have set up for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, what's a long range stage? 4 or 5 targets? Why the hell was
long range stage?
A stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5 targets on a 3-gun.
Typically, if you go to Vortex Shooter Source, you're going to look at like 12 from like 250 to 500. But yeah.
So let's say it's a 5-round, the long range part's 5 rounds. Like that's 40 runs through it.
Ah, yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point.
Right? Of course it's not for me. Anyway. It might be 6, but but like getting down to nuts and bolts as you're trying to hit first round, you're trying to be efficient. How many runs of that are really good runs for me? And am I focusing on the things I need to focus on? If it's unstable position, maybe I just need to be getting up and down again, or reflexively building that stable position on a given device or rock or tree or whatever. I don't think you need 1,000-round days. Once you figure out, I think starting out they're great when you're young, especially, or when shooting, when you're still learning. I mean, just learning the very basic stuff. High round counts are important for part of your training. But once you get better and once you know more about what you need to focus on, it's like, how many times do you really need to get punched in the head before you learn to put your hand up,
Several.
It's still good to get checked every now and then, but you can only put up with so many of those. Kind of direct correlation. But yeah, I'm for long range, man, for good effective long range, man, I'm generally happy with 60 to 120 rounds. That's a long day of good training. I know a lot about what I'm doing and what the gun's doing after 60 rounds. Especially when you start talking PRS and heavier calibers and stuff like that. But training tree gun 5.56 like TAC op stuff, 90 rounds, 100 rounds, something like that. That's a long day if I'm being effective with it.
Right.
There's other things I can do with that time.
So if you're talking about like a 5 target array, something that you're incorporating in your practice, at what point do you stop yourself during a run of like, okay, I F this up. I'm not going to continue to chase hitting each one of these targets. Do you only accept like a perfect run of first round hits on everything, or?
I have no idea when to stop, Dave. I have no idea. Yeah, I stop when it goes to bolt lock and I can't find any more bullets on the ground. Yeah, I haven't figured that part out yet, man. I hate stopping. Now, I know when a gun's broke. You know what I mean? I know when it's completely off, but if it's just me screwing up, I'll stay in it way too long.
Even on drills?
What's that?
Even on drills?
No, so no. If there's something that I don't understand, then I want to stop and fix it. Or I want to, I can come away from the drill. Is my zero come off? Is it bad ammo? Did I put the wrong ammo in the gun? Do I just suck right now? Because there are days that were like, hey, shit day, too much caffeine, didn't sleep enough, you're just not thinking about it, whatever. Don't sit there and, for recreational competitive shooters, don't make it miserable for yourself. But I think for any professional, competitive shooter or anything, the point where if I'm not going to walk away from shooting a day, but this is not what I'm wired to do today. Maybe I'm better off going just visualizing the stage or dry firing or something like that. I think that's more pro level. But if I'm confused about why I'm missing in training, I will stop and figure it out. Yeah, if I know it's because I didn't shoot well. Well, first of all, if the gun's broke or out of zero, I'm stopping right there because there's no point continuing with that. Fix it and then get back into training if you can that day. But if I'm confused about why it's not hitting, what's the point of just slapping away at it? Because then there's a lot of uncertainty comes into it. You really grab the steering wheel and start, going off the edge. So yeah, no, I think the easy answer is if I don't know why I'm missing, I'll stop, figure it out, and then restart the drill.
Okay. All right. Well, I said it 3 questions ago that we were going to move on to the chat, but let's go take some questions from the audience here. So, first one is just Heather saying hey to you.
Hey, Heather.
And then Jay Christensen says the same thing. So, hey to both of you.
Okay.
Heather says, the sign of a good instructor, the ability to break it down in a simple fashion to where the student can understand and digest the information they are given and then do it. I don't think that was a question, but that was pretty profound.
Well, no, I agree with that. I do agree. I think also just take an interest in the person that you're helping out and seeing why they're not maybe understanding it, because a lot of that is the coach's failure to get the information across, and some of it's just a communication barrier. So just constantly gauging yourself on, am I being concise, am I being effective, and am I getting this across respectfully in a way that they can execute it? I think as a coach, you can't just go in there like, I know how to do this, to do what I say.
Right.
You want, that works, I guess, in some regards, but if you want real results, then the student or the athlete is every bit as big a part of the equation as any coach would ever. That's the dumbest thing I've ever said. Of course they are, but you've got to play to the athlete. You know what I mean? So,
right.
You know what I mean?
I got you. All right. So Doc Easley 3-gun. I think that's Dylan Easley.
That's Dylan. What's up, Dylan?
Dylan says, do you think people set their 3-gun optics up on their guns well for long range? Any advice to do it better?
I don't. Yeah, I think some people do. I think there's probably a lot of folks that if you got hands on their gun, you would want to do it better. There's a lot of leveling issues. There's a lot of eye relief issues. Focus is a big one. So can you guys see at all the gun here? Anyway, so having the optic level to your gun is important for us because we do a lot of practical shooting. As long as you have the reticle level at the range that the gun is zeroed at, it really doesn't matter. But we shoot through all kinds of ranges and all kinds of orientations. So you want the up and down parallel or centered on the up and down of the gun. So that's a start, because as I can't remember what it is, like every 5 degrees it cants like half a mil or something. Like it's enough to miss,
Oh, no kidding.
So when you're canting the gun to get the scope level or vice versa, you can start inducing some issues where, because all you're really doing when you're zeroing a scope is basically you're bringing the two online left and right, and then you're bringing the gun up to where the bullet hits a point that you're looking at with the scope, right? So when those are off, they only work in that, one specific plane or that one specific range. So for practical use, go ahead.
I was just making a noise that says I'm listening.
So for practical use, we want it level to the gun, and there's all kinds of ways around it, but honestly, the most versatile way to do it is make sure it's set up with the gun. Other things that we have to worry about is eye relief. Now, if you don't have like a big scope like this with parallax adjustment, you want a consistent head placement where you're centered in the back of the scope, because at range, the way you're looking through all these lenses set up in the erector tube can cause the target to shift in relation to the reticle, right? So we want proper fitment of the gun, or very consistent head placement, either way. And then we want proper eye relief to where we're not having to move our head around a lot to get a full sight picture there. Trick though, if you don't have the ability to adjust parallax and you really want to know if you're centered, you back your head off a little bit and get scope shadow and center with scope shadow. And that guarantees you that you're centered. So if you ever think it's a parallax issue, you either don't have the time or the ability to adjust it, back up a little bit, get a little shadow, and center that evenly all around, and you are dead center in the scope when you do that. So it can work both ways. But one of the big things I think is overlooked a lot, especially newer shooters, is focusing the reticle. So it's super important. First, second focal plane doesn't matter. If you're having to work between two planes where you focus on the target and the reticle's out of focus and vice versa, you're very rarely going to be accurate over time. So it is paramount that you focus the reticle to your eye. So that's back here with the objective focus. I should have known this, right? But anyway, so making sure that's straight, and there's all kinds of drills to do it. Find it online. I'm not going to bore you with it now. But getting that straight. I will say this, for second focal plane 3-gun scopes, learn the difference between your close range and your long range reticle focus and decide if you want to change it, because I often do. And if you're not going to change it, set it to long range and leave it there, because it doesn't matter at close range that much. So those are the biggies that for setup. Don't get cheap mounts. Don't put a garbage mount on a $2,000 scope. I mean, this is the interface between your eye and the target. Like all goes through here. So don't waste money on cheap mounts. This is a spur. Really can't get a lot better than that. But Leopold Warren, there's a lot of good ones out there. Geisler, JP, there's a lot of good ones out there. Spend the money. It will last forever. You'll never break it. You'll go through all kinds of scopes, but spend the money on that.
It's probably the one thing you keep too, right? You always change rifles, you always change scopes, but that mount,
it's just, totally worth it. It seems like, why the hell would I pay $400 or $500 for something? It's like you'll keep it. It won't wear out. You ain't gonna. I could rappel off this thing, and all the other mount. I think it's spur on that one too. But yeah, spend the money on a mount, because you don't want more flex than what's required for the scope in a mount, giving you all kinds of uncertainty. So if it's not. And also learn how to mount one properly, like moving it forward because of recoil and all that. I'm not going to go into it much more, but just get online. There's a former Army, I think, Ranger sniper instructor that has a great video. It's, I think, American Shooting Sports or something. It's perfect. It's the right answer. Just do that. Just do that starting out, But yeah, so those are some of the things, fitment, parallax, objective focus. And leveling to the gun's important for what we do practically, moving around a lot, different angles and stuff. So those kind of things. Hopefully that answered that. If you got more questions, hit me up.
Yeah, it absolutely did. All right. So then the last one, Mike Sexton joins us, and he says, just saw that he was on. Yeah, hey, Mike. Mike says, just saw that he was on. Is there beer involved?
No, just coffee.
Just coffee? And Mike says, good stuff. Mike, good to see you, man. Kind of good to see you chatting. That's what I meant.
Yeah. So Mike and I did Dagger. We ran the Dagger match down there 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, man, we've got a little bit of time left, so let's talk about that briefly. So Task Force Dagger came back. It was a match, a legendary match, and then came back for the first time in a couple years at the Clinton House, right?
Clinton House, yeah. Oh wow, what an event! First of all, I can't say this enough to the staff, especially the ROs, everybody that helped out. You guys are killers. But that was hotter than it needed to be. I got all kinds of colorful things to say, but I don't know the rating here. It was, we couldn't have done without you. So thank you very much. It really, a lot of credit goes out to the guys that staffed the match. It took a little while to get things going with the match. There were some staff changes towards the end there. Once we got underway, we all kind of agreed on a theme. It came together. I think it was the right mix of physicality for the given audience, and the right level of speed, right level of accuracy. The heat added what it needed to add. It's got to be miserable one way or the other to be Dagger, right? If it's not 40 degrees and 40 miles an hour, then it's going to be a million. We had that going. Thanks a lot to the guys at Clinton House for donating what they donated of the land. Everybody, all the sponsors, thank you so much. It was a phenomenal prize table. I'm not going to give numbers because I don't remember them, but well in excess of most of what I've seen going on elsewhere. I wish I had a list, honestly, but I was happy with the way it turned out, and it seems like the shooters were. Again, I like I said to the shooters down there, any issues with it, hit me up. I'm always open for comments. But yeah, I can't wait to see it happen again. Maybe even be a part of it happening again next year. So.
Yeah, Dylan is in the chat still, and he says Task Force Dagger was awesome. It is a must hit for 2019. Awesome.
We'll see you out there, Dylan.
Yeah. So I had a really bad FOMO on this one, fear missing out. So I'm gonna have to put that on my calendar for 2019 as well. Look like kicking the pants.
Yeah, we don't want it to be. We'll try to make it just as hot for you. How's that? Actually, for anybody listening, we talked about moving it. I don't know if it's going to happen. It really comes down to scheduling, but to where it's not lit, like almost too hot to die. But we'll see where it winds up, and you guys will know when we know.
Yeah, I love the way the country puts together 3-gun matches, like we do. Minnesota in March, and then Texas in July. You're like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, it's like we're keeping the worst conditions in sight at all times. Like
I know.
Misery around. Like, let's do Nebraska in January while we're at it.
That sounds terrible. All right, man. Well, so the other match that you were involved in recently is the Duskin, and now this is a unique match that not a lot of people have heard about. Why don't you give us a little bit of background on it?
So a good friend of mine, one of our best, one of our iconic warriors, Mike Duskin, was killed in combat in 2012. Killed taking it to him too. Like, you wouldn't believe the story, but anybody that knew him would be like, that's about what I expected. Phenomenal warrior, but also a great shooter, great dad, great leader, coach. One of the things that he did a lot was he competed. He espoused the idea of competition shooting as a way to get better. He competed in other realms too. He did. He was into jiu-jitsu, lifting, all that. Giant of a man, giant personality, strong, brave kind of guy. And when he fell in combat, it kind of opened a hole in what we had. So a couple of guys, I don't think I can say specifically who they are because they're still working, got it in mind that, hey, we should do a match to honor him. It was a great idea, and the work they put into just getting it permissible was Herculean.
Right, because this is on a base, right?
On base, yeah, and on base with several caveats that it's going to be primarily military, but we want to invite civilian competition shooters because it's a good way for the guys to test themselves against them and also see that there are other fast ways to shoot, and just intermingle the two, because Mike shot competitions as well as he trained constantly. So that was the whole theory, and then also that nobody would make any money off this except for the family or the foundation. And so it's been going for 5 years now. I've been involved with the staff 3 years. I shot it once. I did actually shoot it this year. I wasn't technically staff, but whatever. I stapled a couple papers or something like that. But again, every year has just been getting better and better. And the guys that are at this year, I can't really say them by name, but highly impressive. It's one if you can find video of it, watch it. Disregard all the non-tactical comments. It's so hilarious to read. It's like, this is a place where a shitload of extreme, some of the most tactical people train, and the people in the video running the stage are the people that train them. They're like, that's a bad way to run that house. Come on, man. Anyway.
let's not get away from this one.
Shut up.
So I got tagged in a video that Brian Ray put out, and
That's
Brian
right.
Ray he's a pretty good shooter. Would you call him a good shooter? He's all right.
Yeah.
Right? He holds his own.
He does.
Brian Ray is a very accomplished shooter. He's also one of the happiest and most lighthearted people I've ever met in the sport.
Apparently, he's good at counter trolling as well, though.
Well, I think he had to. That was one of those improvise, adapt, and overcome kind of things. You know? So Brian put out a video, first-person video of him shooting a stage on his own Facebook page. Brian doesn't have like a shooter page or anything, so this is his personal Facebook page. It gets shared at least by my last count, and I'm watching this because it's hilarious. By my last count, it was like 350 times it was shared. I think there's like 197,000 views on this video, and it's pretty slick. It's like him running a shoot house, but the comments are amazing.
They're mostly good. Let's be honest. They're mostly good.
I don't know, man.
Oh, I haven't delved too deep into it. The last time I got on there and did what I said never do, don't feed the trolls. Like they were mostly okay, but yeah.
But
what are you gonna do, man?
Saying like, oh, dude, you got killed several times in this. You know, you're in the
clearly,
funnel, you're in this,
recovered well for being killed 9 times though.
Yeah, exactly.
Stage after that.
And the thing that I couldn't resist. I'm terrible at resisting, but I engaged, and it's like, dude, this is a game, and I know you're big bad Johnny, killer from your Facebook page here, but
Johnny, I never did anything in my life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the conversation I had with Brian. Is like the dudes that I know that I've heard the most about were from other people. They never boast or brag. And there was some boasters and braggarts on Brian's page telling him how he was going to get killed.
Let me walk back what I just said, because I think there is a lot of people out there, or there are a lot of people out there that have done plenty of things, but that there's a disconnect between what we're doing. And I regret saying what I just said, because that's part of this whole thing. Like, that's part of our conversation. It's part of what we do is to bridge the gap. Learning how to shoot fast and accurate, or getting more comfortable with a unfamiliar platform is part of the positive. And if you don't want to do it, or if you think it's corny or whatever, I get it. I can understand that, but it's not. And a lot of very valid techniques have come out of it. Like, who do you think that the baddest dudes in the country are paying to come out and teach them shoot faster? People that shoot fast.
Yeah.
Not tack wizards, because those are the dudes standing there getting the class, But yeah, no, I really regret saying that. I don't mean that disparagingly. There's probably a lot of people there's probably some people commenting that have done some things, but my point is that it's worth checking out. Like this is an avenue to get better that you don't have to if you don't want to, but chances are you're not going to outshoot most of these people. I'm serious. You're just not. To whomever is making these if you don't show up and learn how to find the next gear or whatever, and then learn how to apply it to what you already do, then you're probably going to get outshot by these people when they show up.
Yeah.
I don't mean anything.
And that was the position that I was taking as well. Is like, hey, you know what? Come out, try this.
Yeah, that's it.
You will be humbled, but you're going to have a great time. And the guy that you're making fun of right now for walking into the fatal funnel is going to be one of the people that's going to help you through this match and help you have the time of your life.
And I'll throw this out there. I'll come out to your range and throw sandbags and stuff around, and whatever you can CrossFit me to death or whatever, and we can shoot under stress. I'm down for that too. I think there's a middle ground in there. And I don't think one precludes the other, like I said earlier. So
yeah, trigger time is great. Well, and then the big irony is that Duskin, Mr. Duskin, I don't know his first name. Mike. So Mike Duskin, the one that the match was put on for, that people are, questioning Brian's techniques on. He's a big proponent of competition shooting and a true American hero.
Yeah. Oh, and fitness and all the other stuff, and extremely realistic tactical training. He was a consummate warrior, and he spent his free time competing or getting better at shooting, or we trained together multiple times, and it came down to the conversations on technique versus tactics, and where does this apply before we did it and all that. He was a Renaissance warrior, and Yeah, and it wouldn't be the guy that you have an argument with about is this really valid for two reasons. One, he out arguing, and two, he could pick you up by your head. So, yeah. But yeah, like if anything validates it, it's the people like that, and then just the participation in the match. That everybody, 80% of that match is people that if they haven't just got back from the real deal, they're probably headed there soon. Just the nature of the place where it's held. Where guys, they're half the people in that match, I would take advice from immediately. I would listen to every story they had to say and learn something every time they talk. And so that's why, like I said, I shouldn't have got emotional about it.
Oh, that's all right. I riled you up. Just blame it on me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, we've been all over the map here, man. We've covered some amazing topics. Got a couple last questions before I let you get on with your evening, so you can go have dinner. Right. And because I saw in the chat here that's going to be happening pretty soon. So
really,
yep. So Eric, where do you see the sport of 3-gun headed?
Well, I think I wouldn't be surprised as if we move forward in the short term, we don't see it. The way it's kind of diversified now, if we don't see that as kind of congeal or coalesce into like a physical shooting sport, which is something I've talked with other guys about, like kind of a 3-gun summer biathlon kind of thing, and then other parts of it getting away from that because the audience is also wants like the USPSA style. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that, or like more of a PRS take where it's pistol, carbine, rifle. See that take off a little more because PRS is growing. PCC is blowing up. I don't know what that's gonna do to it, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if in the short term we see it kind of go out into these nodes of different sports that are interrelated but separate, and then other organizations try to take hold of those individuals. But I think eventually it'll come back to one or two kind of sports. What did people really enjoy the most? What are people coming to the most kinds of matches? And it'll kind of make its market correction as it goes forward. But I think it's in the process of diversifying towards finding what most people want to do most often, and that could be terrain based, regionally based, whatever. But yeah, I think it's going to get a little weirder before it's going to get a little more diversified before it gets homogenized personally.
Right. What do you think about?
I love it. So.
What do you think about like a carbine PCC rifle match?
So a carbine, a PCC, and a long gun?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of overlapping skills there. I think you can diversify it, like PCC or rifle carbine or something like that, kind of like what we're already seeing. But, I mean, a format like that, you'd just be open to the creativity of the match director and the range master. You could do a lot of really neat things with that. There's a lot of stuff you can do with PCC that you can't do with a rifle up close.
Yeah, for sure. Like close steel.
Sorry?
Super close steel.
Yeah, super close steel, all that, different kind of shoot house and range limitations are there. And then carbine gives you out to a certain range. And then especially when you start adding options in, do I want to gamble on, you put the carbine far enough away for like a 200-meter shot. It's like, is it worth going up to get it when I can try to take it down like PCC or do the same thing with the long gun or whatever? It really, a creative match director, range master could make some really neat stages based on those gambles, So yeah, I think that'd be neat with the proper people running it. So.
Yeah, sounds like a kick in the pants.
Yeah, right.
Get on that, Eric. All right. So in regards to the sport of 3-gun, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Watching your show, I think everybody's covered the good parts. Just show up, just talk to the shooters, train with guys, watch people know what they're doing, be friendly, be a cool guy and talk to folks, be helpful, all those things. You're going to come up real fast in the sport. So all of that notwithstanding, once you get past that, where you get into the sport, look at your mental game and learn about your mental game. So, we can, if it was just a matter of shooting fast, we could have robots do it. But, the mental game is very key. So read books, get with coaches, get with good shooters, and ask them the questions that nobody's asking about. How do you prepare mentally? How do you get in the flow state? What did you see? How'd you break that down? And if they'll spend the time with you, don't do it, while they're on deck or anything. But but if you can get to that point where you're getting that advice, follow it. And here's what I'll tell you: the mental game is a long road to hoe. It is. It feels like it's something you should just be able to do immediately, and it's not. It takes a lot of work. So educate yourself on it, and then start working it. Work it before, during, and after, or before and after every drill, to the point where it happened during. So that would be my bit that maybe is different from what everybody else said. Because I agree with all the other stuff too. You know what I mean? But once you get past that part, if you're not assessing your mental game, if it feels like your hair's on fire going through a stage, then you've got room to grow. So.
Got it. Well, I just learned that I have a lot of room to grow because I always feel like my hair is on fire when I'm shooting.
Likewise, yeah.
Well, Eric, man, this has been a ton of fun, dude. I totally appreciate your time tonight, and we've been going for 2 hours, so this has been a long edition of the Three Gun Show, but never a dull moment. And I thank you for sharing your knowledge with all the people listening and the people that are going to listen to this. And thanks for being on the Three Gun Show, man.
Thanks for the opportunity, man. I really appreciate it.
Excellent.
Hope you guys have a good 4th, man.
Yeah, happy Independence Day to you.
That's right. Celebrate.